The first part of leadership lessons is lead yourself from within. Before you lead others, it's important to lead yourself. So we'll start with lead yourself from within. And the first leadership lesson is on upholding your core values. Values represent what is most important to you, what you value most, and what is meaningful to you in your life. They are principles, ideals, and standards of behavior. They are an inner honor code that inspires personal internal commitment even when nobody is watching. Values influence your actions, your behaviors, your attitudes and decisions and choices in life. The totality of your self-expression. When you're confused or feeling lost, values, your core values serve as a guiding compass. Values help you to be true to yourself, be your real, authentic self. Values thus ultimately define happiness, fulfillment, and success in life. Every individual has a different set of values based on their life experiences, their family background, the environment that they have grown up in, and or what they want from life. Some of these values form your core values, values that are non negotiable, values that inspire you to do what is right and not what is easy. Colonel, you have been with the armed forces. Now, what are three core values that have served you as your guiding compass in difficult situations?
Okay, I limit my core values to three. Since you mentioned three, what comes on the top of everything to me is honesty. That was my first point, and I have been so far very honest to myself and to people with whom I have dealt with. I feel honesty is like pregnancy. Either you are pregnant or you are not pregnant. You cannot be, I am a little bit pregnant and I am a little bit not pregnant. So there are no shades of gray in honesty. You are either honest or you are not honest. That is my first issue. Uh, and after that, the second point I would think of is adaptability. Although it is a very difficult proposition to adapt ourselves into any kind of situation, the nature of our job in the armed forces is that we perforce have to adapt to the environment, whether physically or mentally. You're posted in a desert area, I have to adapt to the desert conditions. You're posted in high altitude terrain, you're supposed to acclimatize and adapt yourself to that kind of a life. In fact, there are places where there are no other living beings on earth except Indian soldiers and some Pakistani soldiers. So, such places we are supposed to be guarding our frontiers. There is no choice. You adapt yourself. And in the process, what has happened is I have been able to adapt myself into, I mean, wherever I go. The best adaptation was my transition from uniform into CVs. That is, when I joined IIT Madras, there are a few of my people who worked with me who know the challenge that I faced for adapting into this culture outside, whatever they are. And lastly, is being responsible for not just myself but my command. When I say my command, we in the forces, as a young officer who passes out of the academy, he is responsible for 30 men and women under him, soldiers. Similarly, as you rise, what happens is there is a point where you are directly responsible for about 800 to 1000 jawans, and at such times, what happens is taking ownership and responsibility becomes very, very important. It is a second nature, and there are various examples, uh, instances where things have gone wrong, and I had to, when things go wrong, I go forward because I am the one who ordered, and in the execution part, something goes wrong down below in the hierarchy. I cannot say you go and face the music there. That will not be in the right spirit. Therefore, very in Kargil, what I remember was somewhere in 98, 99, we were having a course shooting. Shooting means we fire the artillery guns. It is called practice range, where the shells and bombs fall. Uh, it's just a practice between the observer and the guns. The observer is about 10, 12 kilometers away, and the guns are so much far behind. In the process, what happened once was there is a hill crest. Right now, if you go to Kargil today, it is a airfield, the place that I am now talking of. That that contour, the skyline, which forms the hilltop, somewhere in the top of the target, top of the hill was the target that was given to one observer. And this observer's job was to bring the fire onto the top. Now, the procedure is this fellow gives the latitude, longitude, reads the map, height, and all that. The first round comes, it goes down below. He says left or right, 100, 200 yards, depending on the binocular degree that he watches. And then he adds something. He said, add 800. When the observer said add 800, there is one fellow working on safety, because if the ground goes over, there was a chance, likelihood of this shell going over the hillock and falling outside. That could be a loss to civilian property, including lives. Now, this is training. Somebody has to take responsibility and overrule the safety cry. The safety fellow said, stopped by safety, drop 400, meaning he said add 800. Safety says, no, no, I am stopping this. Please drop it by 400, bring it down. Otherwise, there may be a problem. But then I was the OIC, officer in charge of that course shooting practice. And I said, I am responsible, fire 800. So we have a different lingo for that. I said, so and so responsible and all that, and fire 800. So they went, round went, nothing happened. And after that, I think people were also happy. Okay, nothing happened. The whole thing finished. We started at 8 and finished at 12 o'clock, wound up. When I was entering my mess for having lunch, there was a message for me to go and meet the collector, because some locals have come and collected themselves in front of collector's office. There were 3 rounds in a village across the thing, and therefore no lunch for me that day. I went there, met these people. I Luckily there wasn't much of a damage, and partly these fellows were not supposed to be there, and that became an advantage for us. Our sentries were useful that time. The red flags were there, and despite the red flag, there were some folks who were walking in, and that's how that hue and cry was created. So, what I am saying is, if you are honest to yourself in terms of knowing what is your job, your boundaries, and you stand by your subordinates in whatever they have done, because they have done everything in good faith, I don't think there will be any problem. Thank you.
Often what happens is one of the core values that I observe is no corruption and no bribing. Now, we often think corruption or bribing has to do with money exchange. Not really. Let's say I'm a teacher, my job is to teach, and if I slip in that, if I don't do that properly, then I am corrupt. So, corruption has nothing to do with only money exchange. So, that's something that we don't understand. So, the core value, as somebody put it, you have to define the core value properly. That's important.
The second leadership lesson under Lead Yourself from Within is know your spheres of responsibility. What is a sphere of responsibility and why must you know that? The spheres of responsibility empowers you to take charge of and take responsibility for those things that are within your control, uh, that you can do something about at any moment of time. Knowing what is within your control and what is outside of your control helps you focus and create maximum impact in your life. It saves you tons of energy, time, and mind space that you would have otherwise spent on trying to change stuff or things that you had no responsibility and control over. Stephen Covey, in his book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, says that when you focus on your sphere of control and responsibility, it in fact expands your sphere of impact. Kartik, what are some of your insights on this?
It's extremely important and for us to be aware what really is in our control, what we can influence, and what we can be concerned about. Too often we get mixed up about the whole thing, and I have reflected. I do make mistakes, but I do reflect also to realize. For example, if we spend our today in today's world, there is so much of social media, there's so much of news, which is actually not very healthy news. Also, it's not inspiring news. It's just it just consumes our time. We just don't know. For example, we may be talking about some war going on, some political party making some statement, and spend endless hours during the day debating on WhatsApp or on chat. But can we do anything about it constructively? No. We are ordinary citizens, right? We don't have any influence on world politics, war, economy, etc. That comes under the sphere of concern or interest, which is important, but just let's set that aside. What is really a worthwhile way of spending our time, which is completely in our control, is am I taking care of my body, mind, food? Am I exercising? Am I enriching myself with learning every day, learning relevant things both to my professional work as well as things that are of importance, right, for character building, habit maintenance, etc. Because these are finally we in the beginning of the session we talked about personal leadership. Everything starts with us. So are we doing things that nourishes us, which is within our control? So, managing our time. Time is one of the most precious assets. People typically measure somebody's worth in today's world with the money they have. I would say time is the most precious asset that we have all been gifted. How we use our time is the and how we use our energy. We are all having limited energy. When we wake up fresh. We have about 12 hours of productive energy and time. How we use that is our completely in our control, and where we choose to focus, where we give our mind time to, these are areas that are under our control, and if we use them constructively, then we become better leaders ourselves. Okay. The second is sphere of influence. There is this society that we are closely connected with, the close circle, I would say. It could be students if you are a faculty, it could be family, friends who are within our immediate circle. If we find that we can be of some service. If something is not going right, we don't like something of what they're doing, or we would wish them to be different. We cannot control them, however close they may be to us, but we have a significant role to influence, guide them, direct them. But there stops our influence. I mean, it's not a control, unlike personal habits where it's completely in our control. This is just a sphere of influence. We wish well for them, we guide them, we talk to them and direct them. So there is a partial influence and a little better than ourselves, but it stops at that. So I would say, starting from the core, sphere of control is how we use our time, energy, and mind space. That's where we have control over. If we spend a lot more, we need to spend the highest amount of time there. To a certain extent, we need to spend on our near and dear family, friends, peers, the ecosystem with which we surround ourselves in our professional world, and the least amount of time, if possible, with the external world. Not that we should not be aware of news, not that we should not be aware of economy and weather and things like that. But if we overinvest our time where we are going to have the least results, it's going to be detrimental to us.
Just want to add a couple of points here. One of the attitudes that I see among students, of course, it expands to not just students but many others, is we have this attitude of tell me what to do, right? L- Tell me what to do means you have handed over the control of your own self to somebody else, right? Why can't I just shift it to asking, I'm doing this, do you think it's okay? Right? Which means that now the control is with you, right? We call this as proactiveness. Very few exhibit this kind of proactiveness, and everyone who has been proactive, I've seen them to become leaders of tomorrow. That's one thing that I wanted to mention. The other is personally, when I started this habit of intermittent fasting, over time, the changes happened that people could see, and therefore, when I went to them and said, "It is possible for you to shed off weight, or it is possible for you to have more energy during the day," they bought it. Why did they buy it? It was because that first it started with me, and therefore now when I said that, it gave more power to me. Like what Prasanna said, the sphere of influence happened because of that.
I just couldn't avoid chipping in one bit based on what Prasanna and Shiva said. She talked about Stephen Covey in the context of control and influence, and Shiva added proactiveness. Be proactive is the first habit that Stephen Covey mentions in his 7 habits. So, as just as an add-on, I would strongly recommend that you go through that 7 habits and his book. It'll be very, very immensely powerful. Had the good fortune of reading it in my first year of my when I joined my first job, and it is still one of the best books applicable for all times. The 7 habits of highly effective people. As we all know, we are all big fans of iPhone, and the founder Steve Jobs is very well known. And he says typically the mindset used to be, I will understand the customer requirements and then design products for them. Going back to Shiva's example, Steve Jobs said, I know what is good for the customer, not just good, what is the best for the customer. And that's how iPhone evolved.
The third leadership lesson under Lead Yourself from Within is exercise your power of choice. Charles Duhigg, in his book Smarter, Faster, Better, says to teach ourselves to self motivate more easily, we need to learn to see our choices not just as expressions of control but also as affirmations of our values and goals. Tapaswini How does it help knowing that you have the power of choice in life?
When you have the power of choice, when you know that you have the power of choice, and when you choose for yourself, it gives you the feeling that you're being the best. You're being your the best version of yourself. It'll help you uh, in having a peaceful and satisfying life, because the decisions every decision that you make is your own choice, but not something that is being forced upon you. The power of choice also gives you a responsibility, because you are in charge, and it has consequences. Like, the choice you make has consequences, so it gives you a responsibility. And also, it is important that you have the choice to seek support and help when you are not able to make a choice, or when you're not able to go ahead. It is always okay to choose to seek support. And also, so I want to share one of my experience of where I had to exercise the power of choice. I was part of a inter IIT volleyball team, but throughout the semester during the practice, I was going through having insomnia, but I somehow kept going. But when the final camp time came, I had to make a choice where should I go ahead and finally be part of the team, or should I drop. Then it was really difficult, because inter IIT is a dream for everyone. But then I made a choice, thinking that, okay, if I go ahead, it is not just going to affect me, but the entire team. Because if I'm not able to maintain my health, if I'm not having proper sleep schedule, then it is definitely going to affect each and every member of the team, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So then I chose to not go ahead, and made the decision, okay, I'm going to quit the team, and I'm going to first fix my routine and fix my sleep cycle. Then I'll be able to do better. As we've already seen that we all make choices according to our own core values. So here I was thinking that it is important for me to be honest about what is happening with me. Like, I have to be honest that I am not doing well, and I have to accept that. And I also have to accept that it is going to affect others, because of my inability to perform well is going to affect the entire team. So I had to be honest about it to myself and to the entire team, that I'm not doing well, and I think it is not good that I should be part of the team.
Shiva, you have played many leadership roles in the institute. When you were the dean of students, there must have been situations when it was challenging to make the right choice, right? How did you handle such situations?
There are many occasions where I had to use the power of choice, um, and decision making was very important. What I do usually is I go back to the core values that uh, have to be there in terms of student conduct, etc., etc. I'll give one example of a choreo team which was going to participate in a competition, and they were very good. They were going to win, definitely. But there was one member in the team who should not be participating because of certain corrective measure that the person had to go through. But the choreo team was going to lose if that person were not there. So they came to me and started to trying to convince me that inclusion of that person will win us the gold. So there was a choice that I had to make. So when that happened, I went back to the core values and said discipline is more important, conduct is more important than winning, and therefore I stuck to the decision of saying no to that student. It was difficult because they were all upset because of this decision, but in the end, I felt I did this because the core values had to be maintained. Later on, after the event was over, the students actually came back and said, we understand what you said. So it takes some courage to say no. Many times it also is difficult for you to say no. Being assertive is one thing, but in the assertion, there is also this, because my core value also has been um, people in the front, right? And I didn't want them to feel bad about something unnecessarily. So in this case, of course I talked to them, I told them the reason why I was saying no, etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is, the other core value also came into picture, right? So many times what we do is, instead of saying no, we reason it out to a certain extent so that the other person understands that the answer has to be no.
The fourth leadership lesson under Lead Yourself from Within is take responsibility and ownership for yourself. Dennis Waitley says that there are two primary choices in life: to accept conditions as they are, or accept the responsibility for changing them. End of the day, there is no right choice or wrong choice, and there's no one choice that works for all. No two lives are the same, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't consider advice or suggestions or opinions of family and friends or experts. What happens when you take total responsibility for your choices and decisions? It means that you stop playing the victim. You take ownership for your life. It means that once you've made a choice, you take responsibility for your choice and you don't blame anyone for it, including yourself. If the choice is not working for you, then explore choices, explore possibilities, explore your choices, and just go make another choice if you're unhappy with your current choice. When you take responsibility, when you take ownership for your life and for your choices, you don't play the blame game or wait for someone outside the world outside to come fix it. You take the initiative and go fix it yourself, or you seek help if you need it. You build a support system, because seeking help and having a support system is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Uh, we tend to drain our energy, time, and resources by not really seeking out and reaching out for help and support when we really need it. Aniruddha, I remember you once shared an experience uh, wherein you had to make a difficult choice and you made that difficult choice and you took responsibility for choice. Please share that experience with us.
uh, yeah, I personally haven't been in a lot of situations where I could be a leader, but taking ownership is not something I'm stranger to, and I have taken a lot of decisions for on my own behalf. So, given examples similar to what Tapaswini said, I also had a decision whether to choose inter-IT sports over my academics in my second year of college life. There, I had to make a difficult decision because it was affecting my academics heavily. So, yeah, I took advantage of some counseling, and the way I was counseled was I had to make my own decision. The counselor would not make the decision for me. So, the method he used was to make me think about what are the pros and cons of taking either the action or inaction or taking the either choice, and made me clear on what I should do, and in a way that made me own my choice. So, as I've also seen my captains in the swimming team taking ownership of themselves, they go about this by being creative and not being reactive. Meaning, reactive is a situation where they react to external situations, uh, but being creative is when they themselves define how the situations are shaped. The other thing they particularly exhibit is the calm and coolness. Even though we ourselves know how hectic college life might be, on the pool with the team, everyone is shows a calm and cool, and that's what makes a good leader, in my opinion. Yeah, both internally and out, because it's a situation we are very familiar with. So the other point I would like to add is collaboration. So a leader by alone cannot do anything. So when we collaborate and make a win-win situation for everyone, that's way more productive than when we limit ourselves to within and compete with others. For example, when in my sport we don't have a coach, the reason is because our seniors itself teach the juniors. So that is a prime example of collaboration, uh, in the essence that seniors, there's a cycle that the seniors teach the juniors, and when the juniors become seniors, the cycle carries on. So the juniors take experience from the seniors. So the prime example of collaboration was in my swimming team, where we don't have coaches and the seniors are responsible for teaching the juniors. In this way, the seniors become better at what they do. The juniors take up new experiences, and they themselves become good, so that they can teach the juniors when they become. This is a win-win situation for everyone, and all around this creates a team bonding, which is good all around. A good leader is also responsible for exploring opportunities and being resourceful. So, exploring responsibilities, as in there are a lot of choices all around for a leader to make. He has to make the decision which possibilities to take, and not be reactive, as in he has to accept whatever situation he is. He has to make his own decision.
So there is a beautiful quote. I don't know who said it. God, please give me the strength to understand what I can change, uh, power to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. So this is extremely important to distinguish what what conditions we can influence or change and act upon them once we realize that. And it is better to let go things we cannot control or change, and we need the wisdom to do. We should.
See, in responsibility, there is this word hidden, which is response, right? Now, it doesn't say reactability, it says responsibility. Responsibility has given you the power to respond in the way that suits, right? And therefore, responsibility is the key word that brings in the value, right? It also helps you in terms of leading something. Many times, when this happens, when you're reactive, you actually lose out, because you have just spoken something which cannot be, which is already spilt, it cannot be taken back. So when you are responsible and when you choose your response, it helps in the situation called win-win.
The fifth leadership lesson under Lead Yourself from Within is play to your full potential. All of us have immense potential within us. Playing to your full potential and putting in your 100% into whatever you do is immensely satisfying and fulfilling. And typically, all of us have our own strengths and weaknesses, and we tend to play to our strengths. There's a flip side to this. Strengths have downsides, and weaknesses have upsides. Siddharth, have you ever recognized a downside of any of your strengths?
Learning to lead within oneself involves learning how to play every strength of yours to your full potential. This is especially applicable in a team that has a diverse set of people with varied skill sets. So you have to learn to recognize each person's individual strengths and what their weaknesses are, and arrange them in such a way that all of them complement each other in a synergy. So one example that I would like to share, where I played the entire team to each of their full potential, is when I headed the inter IIT case study contingent. So we have the entire team consists of people from the junior undergraduate to postgraduate students, and each of them has their own fields of expertise. Someone is extremely good at presentation, someone is extremely good at operations, and the only way you can make ensure that the entire team agrees with each other, and how finally as a team we put forth our best case study solution, is when you let each of them play to their strengths. What the undergraduates are good at, you make them express that, and what the postgraduates are good at, you make them do their analysis. So in that way, instead of you dictating what they have to do, if you ask them what they would like to do and ensure that they do what they are good at, in a sense it will result in the best outcome possible. And in the process they will learn what they have to learn as well from someone else, because they're closely interacting with each other in the closely knit team. They will learn to understand what they are lacking and how they can improve for future things. And then there is a flip side to every strength as well. Like J.K. Rowling said in her iconic speech, The Success of Failure, there is a weakness to every strength and a strength to every weakness. One such thing from personal experience, I would say, is being an extrovert. As Professor Shiva and Prasanna ma'am, all of them have said, being proactive, being an extrovert gives you that confidence to go out, be seen, and do a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do, explore new fields, and just become better as a leader. But it has its own flip side. Sometimes you tend to forget or tend to overlook the details that someone else is telling. You probably may not listen to the finer details of someone else, or you might miss out those details. Whereas being an introvert, though it has its own challenges, your ability to listen to others and comprehend in the back end what is happening, that is probably a strength of such a weakness. So in such a way, each strength has its own downside and each weakness has its own strength. So remember that your potential is unlimited. It's your choice how you want it to manifest into something tangible, and be open to learning and growing.
So, to share something similar to what Siddhartha just shared, there was a time when I was an introvert, and I probably still am. And I also had this massive fear of speaking in public. In meetings, I would be quietly admiring the people who articulated and spoke well. Unknowingly, I cultivated active listening, which, when coupled with strong analytical skills that we hone at IIT, helped me grasp the big picture, connect the dots, uh, and which really helped me in designing solutions. I didn't realize this until a few seniors pointed this out to me. While it is important to play to your strengths and not try too hard to convert your weaknesses into strengths, it's important to be open to learning and growth. You never know what strengths and skills you'll build in the process. So it's good to be aware of your strengths, be aware of your weaknesses, but don't get too attached to either of them. But just be open to learning and growing so that you can express your potential to the fullest. The sixth leadership lesson under Lead Yourself from Within is invest in yourself. Invest in your self growth, your self care, and self worth. Yavkrit, you have a hectic schedule trying to balance your acads and your role in the CFI Raftar team. What are some ways you invest or you can invest in yourself?
I need to accept myself however I am. There might be some parts where I'm not very good at, and where I'm not very good at interacting with people. So I have to see how I can uh, improve upon that. So that time is specifically for that, and this is fixed every day. So apart from my ACADS and CFI work, this is what I have to do along with that. And you have to accept however you are, with your mistakes, with your faults, your failures. Acceptance is very important for yourself to love yourself, and you have to value your worth. And the more you grow, the more you learn, the more your worth increases. The more you remove your barriers, your insecurities, the more you
keep on respecting yourself, the more you keep on valuing yourself.
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, what Yavkrit says is missed out by many. I'll give you one incident where this happened. So I met a colleague who had some difficulty in terms of bending his hands and so on. He had some arthritic issue. So I asked him what he was doing. So he said, "Okay, I went to a doctor, has prescribed medicine and certain exercises." So how is it going now? It's improving, is what was his answer. But then he also added, saying that I've been getting more and more busy, and therefore I'm not able to devote time for the exercise that he has prescribed. Not knowing that if he did not do those, the busyness that happens would also get affected. Right? This is some mistake that we do all the time. The self care and taking care of our own selves has that value in terms of being able to deliver better is missed out by many of us, and that poses problems in the long run.
Kartik, please share the importance of investing in yourself and any specific practices that you follow.
Which actually started off mechanically as a child, but I didn't know why I'm doing and all that. But sometimes good habits, when they are there, even if you don't know why you are doing, later you start understanding the meaning with age. So that's something I do early in the morning. A little later, only towards my middle age, I realized the value of exercising, the importance of exercising, which also Professor Shiva highlighted. Because when we are young, we can afford not to exercise and body will cooperate. It is after a certain stage we realize that flexibility of our body parts, muscles, endurance, etc., they'll start showing up in the other aspects of our day-to-day living. I think over the last 5 to 7 years, I've had the good fortune of being in a fitness group. I won't say I'm doing the very best, but at least I'm very positively influenced by what they do, and at least try to adhere to some walks, jogs, cycling, a bit of stretches. I keep alternating them every other day, so that my body is kept active. There are times that I've missed and I've had its effect seen, but luckily I've been able to lift myself up from those situations, and because of the positive influence, being able to maintain a decent exercise routine. Uh, the mental energy today, we are dominated by a world of negative media. I keep repeating that what we consume is not just the food that we need to be conscious of. The other two senses, particularly eyes and ears, uh, they get polluted by a lot of sensationalism, negativity, in all forms of media. Our body and mind are consuming it subconsciously, which results in a not so internal healthy state. So, one of the practices that I consciously do is to, as much as possible, avoid. There are times that I slip into that. Instead, try to cling on to positivity, inspirations. The moment I read, I subscribe myself to a lot of inspiring newsletters and posts. And not only do I just read them, I also make it a point of sharing with a couple of my friends and post it on social media, in the hope that it will similarly uplift them the way it uplifted me. So you create a small circle of influence in the society. Because maintaining the inspiration levels inside high, and being in touch with positive people and events is extremely important in today's world, ever than more than ever before. For a long time in my life, and because of the competitive environment, I used to be not loving my performance, achievements. No matter what I did, I never considered myself worthy of self love. Right? I mean, I used to beat myself and not be kind. Over a period of time, both with experiences and with good mentorship, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is learning to be accepting of myself the way I am and being kind to myself. See, we can't be just kind to others if we are not kind to ourselves. The first thing is we need to be kind, accepting, and compassionate to ourselves. Yes, we are imperfect beings. We'll make our mistakes, we'll slip, uh, will go wrong, etc., etc. But so be it. We always have an opportunity of lifting ourselves only if we become aware, accept, and are kind to ourselves. If we beat ourselves for the mistakes that we make, it's only going to worsen. And we are as good as anybody else. We are not better, we are not worse, we are as good as anybody else. And the best person to give our love to ourselves is ourselves. There's a beautiful quote that I read: accepting and loving yourselves is the biggest gift. Whether others accept you or not, if they accept you, it's a bonus. But the basic best gift that one can give to oneself is accepting and loving ourselves.
Karthik, well put. Um, One of the key elements that often seen among students is associating failure with themselves. Right? They don't. Many times they miss out on valuing their own selves. Instead, associate the failure to themselves. Right? Anchoring in that sense is going to make things worse. Instead, you can work on such insecurities, the limiting beliefs that you have, especially self doubt. Am I capable of doing it? Like, many times this happens, and when you plunge into it, you you find out that you're capable of doing. But that self doubt limits you, stops you from moving forward. So it's important to have the self worth and not associate self to whatever that is happening. The event is different, self is different. When we do this, self worth grows.